So what is going on with Shrek 5? So the recent trailer came out and the internet is ripping Shrek a new one. I understand he's an ugly ogre, but my gosh, you guys are just having your pitchforks out there and trying to like cancel this thing, right? Like it's insane. So I've seen some of this video here. I'm gonna put the original video in the description below, but I want to give my 2 cents because from an artist perspective, I do a lot of different illustrations, but I transform my photograph into different different designs, different character designs, right? So we're going to see whether or not is it justified in terms of Shrek 5. Are we just over exaggerating in the internet world, or is it legit dumpster fire? Okay, so without further ado, let's react to this video.
What is going on with Shrek 5? Over the last decade, it's become increasingly obvious that there's a creativity shortage in Hollywood, with all of the major studios choosing to drag old IP out of storage instead of making something new. Just look at Jumanji, Jurassic Park, or Ghostbusters. One of the latest franchises to get this blatant cash grab treatment is Shrek, with its 5th movie being confirmed for release a full 15 years after its last installment. I wasn't that excited.
It's crazy how it's been 15 years. Time is flying. It don't feel like it because they had Puss in Boots and different other iterations that it didn't feel like it's been a whole 15 years.
Excited about this announcement to begin with, considering the Shrek concept already felt like it'd been beaten to death back in 2010.
They're gonna do an Ice Age 6? Oh man. I do agree. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of faith when it comes down to making new IPs. You could say, well, Mario is a new one. Well, it's based upon an old video game, right? It's a popular franchise. We just haven't seen a new intellectual property that's out there. Everything is just recycled. And people are starting to become fully aware of that, especially now in this internet age compared to back then. With the first Shrek movie was way back then, where the internet was still in its infancy. People didn't really voice their opinion as nuanced as today's age.
But now that they've released the first teaser for this new project, my skepticism has turned.
And look at that. Like, look at the way the graphics look. Now, at first, when I first saw this teaser trailer, right? They have, of course, due to graphics, it enhanced, in my opinion. But the issue is the choices. That's what people are mad about. Their design choices as opposed to the fidelity. To me, the fidelity looks great. They changed the design of Donkey. They changed the face expressions of Shrek. Fiona pretty much looks the same, but she looks older. And then you got a new character who's voiced by Zendaya, which is obviously pandering towards the Gen Zs with her type of aesthetic.
Turned into outright disdain.
And look at that. Like, here's another indicator. She got to have the nose piercing. She got to have the out there lipstick that's dark. She got to have a unique hairstyle. And then she got to have the highlights. That's always a big indicator. They didn't want to go as far as having tattoos because, it is still a children's animated film. So then they're not going to do that. But you could clearly see that they're pandering towards the younger generation, as well as the beginning aspect of it where it shows Shrek in all these different types of memes in a TikTok format. So when I saw that, I'm like, oh, okay, they really are trying to figure out how to get the younger audience enticed into this film.
Okay, maybe disdain is too harsh a
like,
word.
Look at this.
But I'm
oh,
not.
Man. And they was hoping for people to see this and start laughing like, what is this, right? Like, pretty much this is a representation of brain rot. Brain rot is literally something that has no value, but it's just blatantly entertaining. There's no value beyond that. I did a video of like turning myself into a Giga Chad of Super Saiyan 4 Goku from the new design compared to the old design. So I'll put that as a YouTube short, And that's considered brain rot. Like, what are you learning out of it, right? Nothing.
A happy camper. To those of you getting ready to type, "You're an adult, these movies are made for kids." Children deserve good movies. That expectation is what gave us so many amazing animated films in the past, and The Wild Robot, Into the Spider-Verse, Wolfwalkers, and The Boy and the Heron prove it can still be done. Shrek 5, on the other hand, just looks like more of the slop that Hollywood has been spoon-feeding us as of late. I know what you're thinking, how could you have such a strong opinion based on a 30-second clip? So let me explain. Loosely based on the children's book of the same name, the first Shrek movie was released in May 2001.
And here's a difference too. With the first Shrek movie, that was a different time. There wasn't pandering towards a style of the younger generation. In fact, they focused on the classic formula of a family film, meaning adults can watch it, kids can watch it, right? So they had certain references for adults that adults can understand the humor, like an inside joke, while at the same time being wrapped up in a bow for children. To me, that's the best formula. But now the new one is going backwards. They want to pander towards the younger audience, and that to me doesn't really work because unfortunately, younger generations, as much as they will compete with older generation, they still indirectly will get their approval, their testimonial towards the older generation. So for example, let's say Stranger Things, right? That one was obviously for the younger generation, but it was wrapped up in the 80s retro concept, which panders towards the older generation, right? So when the older generation is seeing that, they're given that stamp of approval. That makes the younger generation want to watch the IP even more, the series even more. Same thing like Cobra Kai when that was out, right? That's mad old, by the way. Karate Kid was way beyond. I don't even think that's millennials. That's like technically, that's Gen X, I believe, right? So the generation before millennials, right? So that was their IP when they was younger. So they saw that resurgent and they're like, okay. And then the younger generation wants to watch it even more because it's a throwback and they got a stamp of approval by the people who watched it back then. That's how you create a family, film or IP when multiple generations can coexistly watch and enjoy what they're seeing. It doesn't really work out when you're pandering for younger, because then the older generation is like, ugh, this is cringe. TikTok, why is this going on? What's the meaning behind that, right? And then the younger ones is like, well, if they're not into it, then we're not going to really be into it as well. That's how it goes. It's like big brother, little sister, or big sister, little sister, big brother, little brother. You know what I'm saying? Like that's always that type of dynamic. Now, let me know if you guys agree or disagree with me down below.
Quickly became one of the biggest films of the year. With its grumpy protagonist, unusual love story, and pop culture references, Shrek subverted expectations of the fairy tale genre and had an immeasurable impact on the animation industry, cementing the shift away from 2D and setting a new standard of adult humor and kid-friendly stories. Not to mention, it was also one of the first times that Disney had some real competition, signaling to other studios that there was no longer a monopoly on the medium, resulting in a huge increase in animated films in the years that followed. The popularity of the film led to the release of a sequel in 2004, and against all odds, Shrek 2 wound up being just as critically and commercially successful as its predecessor. Then CEO of DreamWorks, Jeffrey Katzenberg, decided to continue riding this neon green wave and immediately got to work on a full-blown Shrek franchise. 3 additional films and a spin-off were planned, but with each of these new releases, reception to the franchise soured more and more. Instead of the planned 5-film arc, the main Shrek storyline ended in...
I forgot that Shrek, man, I haven't seen Shrek in such a long time. I forgot that they had kids. So are they going to showcase the other kids? Because so far they only showed one.
2010 with the 4th film, Shrek Forever After. And after the release of the spin-off film, Puss in Boots, the following year, the entire franchise was put to rest. Although DreamWorks insisted that they were still trying to find a way to continue the story, the franchise remained in limbo for several years until 2016 when NBC Universal purchased the studio and all of its IP. They immediately announced plans to revive the Shrek series alongside some of DreamWorks' other dormant franchises, and Chris Meledandri was brought on to oversee these plans. Meledandri is the CEO and founder of Illumination, the studio responsible for Despicable Me, The Secret Life of Pets, and Sing, franchises that are so formulaic and generic that I consider them the animated equivalent of a Big Mac. The first film to come out of this collaboration...
In other words, it's very just fast food. They end up doing a lot of research on what, younger generations are into, and they trying to just shoehorn that and figure it out as they keep just plowing IPs like that over and over and over and over. Like I said, the beauty of Shrek, it wasn't that formulaic. It was just, we want to make an interesting IP. Simple as that. When you got a lot of greedy corporate hands on, here's the stats on this is what they're really into. And they get the stats from our phones, and different devices where what's the retention rate? What are the Gen Zs like? Are they into this type of content creator? Why are they into this type of content creator? How does this content creator look? What do they do? And they will copy and paste that onto their films.
Operation was 2022's Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, and unlike most, I wasn't a huge fan. Now, I did like a few things, like the dark humor and Puss's acceptance of his mortality, but the pacing and new characters just weren't for me. My biggest issue with The Last Wish was actually the art style and animation, which honestly wound up making me feel queasy at some points. And I don't know why, because I didn't mind a similar effect in...
I think that was similar when it came down to Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Now correct me if I'm wrong in the comment section down below. Which one came out first? I'm assuming it was Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, and then Puss in Boots came out. So they probably must have took inspiration from the success of that, and they kind of incorporated that into this film.
Spider-Verse. Because computer animation is constantly evolving, it's to be expected that a character might look a bit different in their first appearance compared to their last. But changing the art style willy-nilly is something that I just can't abide by. I didn't like it when it happened in The Incredibles, and I didn't like it in American Dragon Jake Long. Besides the...
What a downgrade with American Dragon. If you guys want me to do like side-by-side comparisons of like redesigns and different cartoon shows, let me know down below, and just let me know the specifics of what you guys want me to break down. All right, just want to do that as a shameless plug, but let's get back into it.
Changes to Puss's appearance that made him look more...
Look at that, like they just made him look more cartoony compared to the original.
More cutesy and less cat-like, Goldilocks was very indicative of the changes made to the art style in the Shrek universe, with the character looking like one of a dozen Disney Pixar knockoffs, something that's doubly disappointing when you consider that Shrek was literally created as a subversion and parody of Disney's usual tropes. Unfortunately for me, The Last Wish seems to have rubbed off on Shrek 5, with the teaser showing an absolutely terrifying version of the characters with voluminous hair, glossy skin, generic features, and gigantic eyeballs.
Give me those eyes, big eyes, give me big anime eyes.
It honestly looks like something out of an AI prompt, and this cartoonish stylization reminds me of the look that Meledandri loves over at Illumination, although thankfully it's not quite that intense. What made the original Shrek movies unique?
I was gonna also say that I don't know if she's gonna say this, but when I was a kid watching Shrek, well, more like turned into a teenager, what caught my attention with Shrek is that they actually went more into a realistic perspective as far as detail, not photoreal, but they had more 3D realistic elements to it, where they're not trying to make it solely for kids. Is that like, just like what I said before, it was a good hybrid. So some elements is like, oh dang, this actually is like real people, but then in a little bit of a caricature way, like this, for example, right? That looks like an actual person. But then you see the eyes a little bit, and you see certain aspects of it where it's like, okay, this is for kids, but also adults can watch it too.
In regard to their animation was how the characters actually had distinctive features that made them look realistic and human. Yes, even the magical creatures. Take, for instance, Shrek Forever After. Although it certainly isn't the best Shrek film, I have to give them props for the ogres, who all have distinct appearances that help make their world feel real. I'm not getting Shrek or Fiona confused with anyone else. In the teaser, the characters not only look nothing like themselves, but they don't have any identifying features that make them stand out in a lineup either. And don't even get me started on Donkey, who no longer resembles a stuffed animal that's gotten a bit too much love, and instead looks like a reskinned Marty from Madagascar. Although we know next to nothing about Shrek 5's plot, I can already make a few educated.
And again, we're talking about, like, just like with her, what she's saying, like, and I'm talking about it as well. We're talking about what we're seeing, right? We're just giving an opinion on what we're seeing. We're not saying that, oh, this is going to be a terrible movie. No, we're saying what we're seeing visually. We're just giving our opinions based upon that. Yeah, Donkey does look different there. Now, to be fair, we just got to see when the movie's out. Is his ears going to be like completely down, or is it just that particular scene where it's down, right? We don't know, right? But he does look more, the fidelity of it, and again, the decision making looks very illuminated. It looks too glossed over, like what she said, instead of before where they're ogres. They're not meant to look all glossy and shiny. They're meant to look rigid and ugly. That's the whole aspect of it, right? They're not supposed to look like super pretty and aesthetically appealing.
Guesses based off of this short clip. Since Zendaya is already being featured prominently in the marketing, I can assume that her character, Felicia, is going to have a big role in the story. Considering her grimaces and groans directed at her parents, I bet that we're going to get an extremely generic growing pains storyline where Shrek is confused why his daughter doesn't want to hang out with him anymore, and his attempts to reconnect with her will just wind up driving them further apart.
Yeah, with those 3 babies, who knows if they're just going to retcon that. Or if they keep it consistent, maybe the other 2 kids decided, hey, we're going to go out our own way because it's going to rub friction, because Zendaya's she's a popular actress. So of course she's going to be the main focal point, right? So the other 2, or I don't know if it's 3 babies or not, but like the other 2 kids are probably going to not really be featured in the movie. That's what I'm thinking, right? That's just my guess. Also, it might be one of those unfortunate, again, this is just a guess, unfortunate outcome where the main character, well, she ended up becoming the main character, Zendaya, where she's the bait and switch. So even though you wanted Shrek to have his storyline, Shrek's storyline is pretty much done, and the antithesis is going to be more on her. She is going to be the main character, and Shrek is going to be the supporting character, as well as Fiona being the supporting character. I mean, that might be the case. Let me know what you guys think down below.
If that sounds familiar, it's probably because you've seen it in a dozen other animated movies like Ice Age, The Croods, or Hotel Transylvania. But now I have to wonder, what's going on with Shrek and Fiona's other kids? Or are they just going to pretend like Fergus and Farkle never existed? Which would be pretty ironic considering the plot of the 4th film. But like I said, this is just a guess.
Wow, look at the difference. It really did get glossy. It got mad glossy. Did you see that? Like, look how the old one, right, is natural lighting. You see that? Natural lighting. Nothing is like what you guys see here, like with this type of lighting. That's how it looks in the new Shrek film. The lighting's like this, And then the old one, it was much more of a matte approach as opposed to gloss. A matte is literally just simple, solid shape. Just like if you look at matte car paintings or just matte paintings in general, there's no shine to it. That's why it's called matte. It's opaque. Okay, so it's solid, it's matte. So when you hear matte colors, that's what that means. There's not a lot of fidelity with so much contrast between lights and shadows. Now, when you hear gloss, that's the opposite of that. Like what you guys see here, you guys are seeing all of the lights, you see all of the shadows, you see all of this dramatic lightning that's going on because it's much more of a directional reflection on the surface. So that's gloss. So that's food for thought. So this is more matte, and then look at the difference between this,
which would be pretty
and
ironic
then watch when they show
considering
the
plot of
teaser.
the fourth film. But like I said,
Whoa, you see that? Huge difference. Huge difference. And they purposely did that to get a lot of viewers' attention, but unfortunately, hey, people remember. People remember, and nowadays, because of the internet never forgets. They will grab stuff from damn near 1960s, and you're like, whoa, and they'll just showcase that as evidence.
This is just a guess, and we'll have to see how far off I was in 2026. Now, I know this whole video probably made me sound like a negative Nancy, but I'm definitely not the only person who feels...
Look at that. You see how like they make this very natural lighting, realistic. I remember this when I was a kid. I was like, damn, like even the physics of it too. It's just natural. They're not shoehorning, making things so bright and dramatic. They're taking natural lighting as if you could be in that type of scenery, right? So we'll see what will happen next year. Because, animations, they take a long time to make.
Feels this way about it, with the internet basically exploding with memes after the teaser's release. So I guess the question now is, will they pull a Sonic and make some changes, or are they going to commit to whatever the hell this is? What are your thoughts on...
I don't think... shout out to this content creator, Modern Girls. Like, it's a unique, instead of curls, girls, right? I personally think, now I'm going to put back the background music. There we go. I personally think they're not going to do a redesign. The difference is that with Sonic, it's taking place live action, right? He's a 3D model. You got CGI elements, but overall, it's taking place with actual actors and actresses, right? That's a huge difference compared to Shrek. Shrek, the whole thing is 3D. Everything, the style, everything is 3D. So it's more work because you're not asking to just change Sonic. Now you're asking to change Fiona, change Shrek, change Donkey, especially Donkey, right? So you're asking to change all of these characters. And the overall style, you want them to change the whole thing. So that's literally pretty much starting from the ground up. They're not going to do that. That will take them another 3 to 4 years. And unfortunately, time is money. Okay, so they have a deadline. What they can do, which would take them a few months, maybe a year. I don't do 3D animations, right? But what they can do is to lower down the gloss fidelity and make it more of a natural matte rendering. You can do that. But to actually change the whole character design and then going back and with all of the other characters there, that's not happening. That's wishful thinking. So what do you guys think in the comment section below? Like I said, I do a lot of different character redesigns using my photograph as reference. So 30 suggestions if you guys want to support the channel. 30 suggestions in the comment section below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.